our series of discussion on different types of costing which we use in management accounting, we are going to start another very interesting and practical topic of batch costing today. At times we purchase a product. Specifically when we purchase medicine, there is a term called batch number. Batch number is written not only in case of medicine, not only in case of pharmaceutical industry. Wherever you buy a product which requires certain amount of standard to be maintained, if you even if you take a tetra pack of fruit juice, there also you find batch number. And at times you think that what is the need of providing this batch number? Apart from manufacturing date, expiry date, or best before date, what you call, they are offering us the price and other things, and along with that there is a batch number which is provided. If you ask me about the pharmaceutical industry, I would say, let us take example of pharmaceutical industry. There the purpose behind giving that batch number is to exercise control over the quality of that specific product. But apart from controlling the quality, we are also looking at the costing of that. And here comes the role of batch costing. So at times learners are thinking that batch costing is only used in order to exercise control over efficiency and effectiveness of that specific production process. Or in case of any untoward incident, we can easily identify that this product belongs to this batch and accountability can be fixed to that specific batch. That it is coming out of which batch. Even when we talk about the civil servants, they very often report that they are IAS officer of this specific batch, that 1991 batch or 2010 batch or 13 batch. Even in your college setup, we have our students calling alumni. In alumni meeting, this term is very frequently coming to us that I am a graduate of 2012 batch or 13 batch or 20 batch and so on. So what is the purpose of using this batch? So this batch is when we talk about the college setup and a student is telling us that he or she is a student of 2020 batch, it indicates that they were admitted 3 years back. If I am talking about undergraduate course as of now, which is of 3 years, so they must have got admission in 2017-18 and now they have passed out in 2020. So we can very easily relate that if I have to find some data about those students, we can go to that specific year and find. Likewise, in case of pharmaceutical industry, suppose if I am buying a medicine and that batch number is given and there is some problem with that medicine and you have to file a complaint, then of course if complaint is being escalated to the company will talk to its costing department, and costing department will specifically try to reach to that batch and then their supervisor that see this is the problem and this problem belongs to your batch. If they don't do so, it is very difficult for them to exercise control, effective control over their not only cost but also quality. So this is basically a brief background of making production or doing some activities in batches. Now you must be thinking there must be several questions going in the background in your mind, that what are those conditions where we use batch costing, what is the characteristic of batch costing, what is the need of batch costing, what advantage other than exercising quality control we are going to retrieve from this batch costing. And these questions are very obvious in nature. And to answer these questions, I have crafted this very lecture of today in the name of batch costing, or what you call as on batch costing. So the agenda of my today's lecture is to tell you about the very purpose of batch costing. Why do we apply this batch costing? Then we'll talk about the conditions or circumstances where the batch costing is applied. Along with that, I'll be briefly explaining you the nature or very characteristics of batch costing. We'll also talk about advantages of batch costing and then numerical problems on batch costing. Job costing is basically a method of costing which is applied to determine the cost of specific job or specific lot of production which you are going to manufacture as per specification. So there are certain specifications, there is a specific demand from the market, there is a job which I have received as a manufacturing unit, and along with that they have given me the specification that as per these specifications this production has to be done. It can be for one unit, it can be for number of units, it can be for 10 units, it can be for thousands of units with the same specification. So the question comes, that this can this job be for number of units? Yes, answer is yes. It can be a product, it can be a unit, it can be a batch, it can be a sales order, it can be a project. So it can come to us in different forms, but the similarity is, or you can say the basic point of understanding is that it is a job which is being offered to us with certain specifications, and it is used to control efficiency and estimate future work. Suppose if you are into the ready-made garment business and some school has approached you for the uniform of their kids, and for kids in different ages, so they are not going as per the age of the kids, rather they are going as per the size of those uniforms. So for one specific section, for one specific age group, the size is almost the same with some minor changes, and that is the assignment given to us. So specification is provided to us, and as per that specification we have to complete the job. So basically the job costing is used to control efficiency and estimate the future work. And the very basic benefit of this job costing is that you can compare one job cost to another. That what is my cost of completing job A with that of job B, and accordingly we decide the price also, we determine the charges also, because from charges only you are going to have your revenue. Now if we talk about batch costing, we need to understand that it originates from job costing only. A job order can be for an item or it can be for a number of items, and whenever it is for a number of items, then of course the order is prepared or manufactured in different batches. When you are manufacturing one unit, then there is the costing which we apply is known as job costing. But in case of the number of items to be completed by you, to be manufactured by you, to be processed by you, to be designed by you, the order is prepared or manufactured in different batches, and the cost of a specific batch is used to determine cost per unit. So we first calculate the cost of complete batch, that the total effective cost of this batch is this, and then we divide it by the units produced by specific batch to arrive at the cost per unit. So it is not like the unit costing where we were aggregating the total cost and dividing it by number of units. Here we are basically taking batch as a specific unit, batch as a total unit, that what is my total cost of this specific batch, and divide it by the number of units which this batch has created. Suppose if you are running a coaching institute, coaching center, let us come to a very basic example. Suppose if we talk about a coaching center, specific coaching center, which is having 5 batches, and in every batch they have 20 students, and the batch is for different standards. One is for class 9th, another is for 10th, then for 11th, and then 12th. So likewise you have different batches, charges are different. So you cannot aggregate the total cost of coaching institute and compare it with the total revenue. If you do so, then of course you cannot identify which batch is more profitable than that of others. And this is why what you do, you take each batch as a unit, and in that unit whatever cost you incur, you compare it with the revenue generated by that batch to arrive at a conclusion that whether I should continue with this batch or not, or whether I should make it double or not, or what should be my strategy as a management accountant. That is what you want to do, and for that the solution is batch costing. So apart from your cost control, apart from maintaining efficiency, apart from quality control, this is additional benefit, or what you call as this is the real benefit which a management accountant is looking for, and for that only they are very much willing to apply this batch costing. So batch costing is specifically used where the products are manufactured in definite batches. The batches are known to us and they are held in stock for sale. So if you are producing in bulk, then of course you are going to make use of batch costing. This is one of the important traits of batch costing, the conditions when you use. It is used where the products are manufactured at large scale. Like suppose if you talk about a biscuit manufacturing company, there also they have different batches. They write batch number because they are manufacturing at a large scale. The manufacturing is in bulk. That is why they are using this batch costing as a method. Now you must have understood what exactly we mean by job costing and batch costing. So job costing is basically a method of costing which is being used for calculating the cost of a job, and when that job is at large scale, suppose if you are having an assignment in large number, then of course you have to apply batch costing. So conditions when we are going to use this batch costing, I am going to tell you. The first is when the products which you are manufacturing, they are identical in nature. So if the products are identical in nature, then of course we are going to apply this batch costing. So first condition is that the product which you are going to manufacture need to be identical, and that is why all students who are sitting in one section in one batch, of course they are identical in one aspect, that they belong to the same standard of their class. Like suppose if I am teaching students of class 10th, then all students who are sitting in that batch, they belong to class 10th only. So the products manufactured are identical. If I am talking about a specific medicine which I am manufacturing as per the specification, suppose if I take any medicine and its composition is decided and I am manufacturing it in that specific batch, so all medicines which are manufactured by this specific batch is supposed to be identical. And another condition where we are using is when your product and component is produced in very large number at a time. So of course you have to prepare in batches. You cannot go for product to product or unit to unit. You prepare it in a batch. Further, identification or tracking or what you call as control of quality is essential. If your product is of that type where the identification of that specific product, that from who were the employees who manufactured it, and if we wish to track that or we wish to exercise a control of quality, then of course batch costing is the only solution. Even if you go to these days, if you go to a specific shop where you are buying your junk food, you can find that they are manufacturing, you can see the process also at the counter. When you stand there, you can see that what they are doing, and they are actually preparing it in batches. So they are not dealing with one to one. Billing is being done one by one, but similarly they are actually coming to know that this is what we have to supply, and accordingly one person is there who is preparing it in the batches of say 10 or 5 or whatever is the number, whatever is their span of control, they are manufacturing accordingly. So if your product manufactured is identical, if you are producing in a very large number at a time, and you wish to exercise control over the quality, which is essential part, and not only that, of course you are willing to maintain the efficiency in the production process, if these are your expectations, these are your requirements, then for you the only solution is batch costing. Because not only the quality control is the point with which you are concerned, you are also concerned with the costing, you are also concerned with the process, you are also concerned with the timely completion of your job, and for that batch costing is supposed to be used. Now coming to the nature and characteristics of batch costing, what is the nature of batch costing? Just do remember that the process in batch costing is repetitive in nature. The similar process you have to follow for each and every unit which you are manufacturing in a batch. So if you take example of a medicine, specific medicine, the same process is to be followed for each strip or each unit, whatever is your unit, you have to follow the process. And there is a functional layout of various manufacturing processes. So one process is completed and your outcome is being transferred to the another step. So it is basically a functional layout of various manufacturing processes, and one operation is carried out on the entire batch, and then it is being passed on to the next process. So step 1 is done, then it is being forwarded to step 2, and so on. So this is the very basic characteristics of batch costing, and remember that the similar type of machine is being arranged at one place, and then only you are completing this production process, this job under batch costing. So this was a brief introduction about batch costing, how it differs from job costing, how it is differentiated from the job costing only, although it is basically part and parcel of job costing, but we don't put it in the category of job costing, we are giving it a new nomenclature called batch costing. But the traits are the same. You are completing a job, but in order to exercise control over your quality, you are willing to ensure the quality control, and along with that you wish to complete the process within the stipulated time. You want that your entire product should be manufactured at a time, there has to be a timely delivery, and for that you are producing in batches. So after understanding this, we should now move on to what is new into it. Just like we were computing economic order quantity in normal costing procedure, here in batch costing we can calculate economic batch quantity also, which is known as EBQ. Economic batch quantity, the term itself sounds very attractive, that economic order quantity we were knowing, but what is the economic batch quantity? Here we have to decide the optimum size of a batch. So we wish to know that what should be the size, what should be the minimum size of a batch which is giving me the optimum cost. So we have to decide the optimum size of a batch, and that is basically a significant decision. Just like in case of economic order quantity, we were computing the minimum size of order, that what should be the minimum size of a specific order which we are going to place. Likewise, here we have economic batch quantity, that what should be the minimum number in a batch, minimum number of units to be produced in a batch, minimum number of students to be kept in a classroom, which is basically cost effective for us. And the size of this batch is basically influencing the clerical and other machine setup cost, which are known as standing charges. And if the size of batch is higher, then of course your unit cost will tend to decline. So we have to keep this thing in mind, that at the end of the day we have to be cost effective, because in this competitive environment we cannot increase the selling price. We have to basically work on how to reduce my cost, and batch costing is economic batch quantity, calculation of economic batch quantity is an answer to that, that if the size of my batch is higher, of course my unit cost may tend to decline. Very simple formula is here. EBQ is equal to _2 US divided by C. What is E? That is economic batch quantity. U stands for annual usage in terms of units, and S stands for setup and order processing cost. Whatever is your setup and order processing cost, that you will be multiplying with your annual usage in units, and it is to be divided by the carrying cost of 1 unit for 1 year, because while telling you about the batch costing, I told you, unlike job costing where the job is done and product is being transferred to the person, here we have to maintain the stock as well. So carrying cost of 1 unit for 1 year is being taken here to calculate the economic batch quantity. So my dear learners, it is just like computing economic order quantity, but it is different from that, because here we are focusing on the batch, that what should be the minimum size of a batch in which we need to manufacture. So if you find that a particular company is manufacturing 10,000 pills of a particular medicine in one batch, then there is a logic behind that. Why only 10,000? Why not 9,000? Why not 20,000? Because they must have computed their EBQ, that is their economic batch quantity. So number of units to be manufactured in one batch is actually determined by this formula called EBQ, and that this is the motive of mine behind telling you why do we calculate economic batch quantity. Before we move on to numerical problem, let me tell you about the advantages of batch costing, so that we are over with the theoretical part of this discussion. It is actually giving me whatever was my objective, that is being achieved by batch costing, and that becomes the advantage. So it is making the benefit of reduced cost of production. My cost is getting reduced. Supervision becomes very easy and effective. You can exercise effective supervision and control over the production process, and of course quality control is assured in a better manner if you apply batch costing in your organization. And the loss of time under job costing, which is arising out of your inter-job transfer, when you are transferring your products from one job to another in terms of material, labor and overheads, it is basically minimized when we are using batch costing. And of course your accounting work is reduced owing to your homogeneous job. So this was all about the batch costing. Now let us solve a problem to have a better understanding of batch costing. We'll take up a numerical problem to exhibit the way we have to calculate this cost. There is a company called LK Limited which is undertaking to supply 1000 units of a component per month. for the months of January to March 2022. This is the information they have provided, and every month a batch order is opened against which material and labor cost are booked at actuals. So whatever is actual consumption of material and labor, that is what you are booking, and overheads are levied at a rate per labor. The selling price is contracted. This is a part of their contract that selling price shall be rupees 15 per unit. And this problem is asking us to present the profit per unit of each batch order and the overall position of the order for 3000 units. So we have to do the calculations in two different manners, in exhibiting two different aspects. One is for each batch order, another is for the overall position of this company for the total order of 3000 units, because monthly order is of 1000 units. So we have to be little cautious how to calculate the cost per batch and then divide it by total number of units manufactured by a batch, so that we can report that this is my cost per unit. So first what we'll do, we'll calculate the cost of that specific batch, and then we shall find out the number of units produced by this specific batch to arrive at the cost per unit which we have manufactured. Question is reporting about the batch output month wise. For the month of January, February and March, they are reporting batch output to be 1250, 1500 and 1000. This is in terms of numbers. So these are the units. Material cost is given to be rupees 6250, 9000 rupees and 5000 rupees, and labor cost is reported to be 2500, 3000 and 2000. So here, my dear learners, they have reported material, labor, and along with that they are reporting us batch output in terms of units. Further, the question is reporting that labor is paid at the rate of rupees 2 per hour, right? So this is the labor cost, and month wise the total labor hours and overhead is also given. So month wise overhead is reported to be rupees 12,000, rupees 9,000 and 15,000, and total labor hours to be 4,000, 4,500 and 5,000. Sometimes our learners think that this is my total overhead for a month, so there is no need to do the calculation. Then there is a very obvious question: what is the point of reporting in the question that overheads are being charged in terms of labor hours and labor is paid at the rate of rupees 2 per hour? That I'll tell you. First of all, we'll start with a working note. We'll prepare a working note of this question so that we can find how to calculate the labor hours, because it is the labor hour which is going to decide the overhead for specific batch. So first we'll calculate the labor hours, then we'll compute the overhead per hour and overhead rate per hour, and that would be multiplied to the labor hours to arrive at overhead for that specific batch, right? So we shall not take the total overhead just like it is given in the question. There is a different way to deal with that, and that is what I'm going to tell you. Labor hours, labor cost is given in this question, and labor rate per hour is given. Labor rate is given per hour given is rupees 2, and labor hour was reported in the question was 2,500 hours for January, 3,000 for February, and for March it is 2,000 hours. So I have not done any complex calculation. I have simply divided the total this labor cost divided by labor rate per hour. So 2,500 is the labor cost divided by labor rate per hour to arrive at labor hours, and I found that 1,250 is the labor hour for January. For February it is 1,500 hours, and for March it comes to be 1,000 hours. So I have computed the labor hours for all 3 months. And why do I need this labor hour? Because without this labor hour I cannot calculate the overhead for the batch, because question has stipulated that overhead is supposed to be charged on the basis of your labor cost, your labor charges. The second step after computing labor hour is overhead per hour. And how to calculate it? Take total overhead cost and divide it by total labor hour. So your total overhead for each month is reported in the question: 12,000, 9,000 and 15,000. Some students, they take this as overhead for a month and they don't do any calculation like we are doing, and this is the point where they commit a mistake. So 12,000 rupees is my total overhead cost. I have to divide it by total labor hour, which was 4,000 reported in the question. This labor hour was given in our question that 4,000 hours you are consuming in January. In February you consumed 4,500 hours, and in March you consumed 5,000 hours. When you divide this overhead cost by total labor hour, you come to know about the overhead rate per hour, which comes to be rupees 3, rupees 2 and rupees 3 for January, February and March respectively. Now once I have computed the rate, it is very easy for me to calculate overhead for the batch. 3750 comes to be for the month of January. How did I find this value? 1250 is R and 3 rupees is the rate which I have computed. So I would multiply both of them to arrive at this 3750. For February it is 1500 into 2, 3000 rupees, and for March it is 1000 into 3, 3000 rupees. So very simple to calculate my overhead for this specific batch. So this was a point of understanding. Minus this, rest all is known to you. We follow the same process. We have only computed this labor hour here. We have computed overhead per hour to arrive at overhead for this specific batch. So now we'll move on to the statement of cost and profit per unit of each batch. So each batch output is given. I have simply reported horizontally from January to March and made a total of units. So 1250, 1500 and 1000. This is from the question only. Now sales is given. Selling price was given in the question to be rupees 15 per unit. I have simply multiplied them with this batch output 1250 into 15 and got the sales value. Likewise, the computation is done for subsequent months also, that is February and March. Now after sales, we have to first find out the cost. For material, the value which is given in the question, I have simply posted here 6250, 9000 and 5000. I have simply posted. For wages also, we have posted the same value, and overhead, which we have recently computed in our working note, because this was the point which required the calculation aspect, and that is why we first started with our working note. Overhead came to be 3750, 3000, 3000, and if you make a total of it, 9750. Now what I'll do is material, labor and overhead, all three are aggregated to arrive at total cost, which comes to be 12,500 for January, and for February it is 15,000, for March it is 10,000. If you ask me what is my cost per unit, what is my total cost per unit, very simple, take total cost divided by batch output. So 12,500 is divided by batch output. If you go vertically at the top, you find the batch output 1250. If you divide it, you find the total cost per unit of rupees 10. And if you look interestingly, the cost per unit is the same for all months. In February it was 15,000 divided by 1500. In March it is 10,000 divided by 1000. So you came to know about cost per unit. Now if you ask me what is my profit per batch, very simple, take total cost, take sales and subtract your total cost out of it. 18,750 is my sales for January and total cost is 12,500 for this month. My profit per batch comes to be 6,250. If you are willing to know the profit per unit, very simple, 6250 divided by your units, you will find the profit per unit to be rupees 5. The same process we have followed for the month of February and March. So my dear learners, here we have understood how to calculate the profit per batch and profit per unit. So try to understand, profit per batch is coming because you are having the total number of units manufactured in this batch. You have taken the total sales, subtracted your cost to arrive at profit, and this profit belongs to complete batch. And if you ask about the units, very simple, you have to divide it by your units. So 6,250 divided by 1,250. Order was of 1000 unit, but we are basically out producing 1250 because this must have been decided on the basis of my economic batch quantity. Now to conclude, we have to compute the overall position of order for 3000 units. Very simple, 3000 units we have sold out. Selling price is 15 rupees per unit. This is 45,000 rupees is my revenue, and total cost is 10 rupees per unit. We have recently computed just before I was telling you how to calculate the total cost per unit. 3000 into 10, 30,000, and profit is 15,000. So this is the profit which is going to the financial to the financial accounting people, to the accounts department, that this is my profit. But the batch costing was done for the entire batch. Now you must have understood that batch costing is entirely different from that of your this preparation of statement of cost and profit, where we have compared the sales with the total cost to arrive at profit. So I hope you must have understood the very topic of batch costing. We shall come up with some more numerical problems on batch costing in our lectures to come. I hope you must have understood and enjoyed today's lecture of mine. Thank you so much.